Hi, I'm historian and author Claire Ridgway, and welcome back to my Tudor Christmas Advent series. Today we're looking at something I touched on briefly in my earlier video on masques and merriment, but which absolutely deserves its own spotlight. Morris dancing, a vibrant, noisy, colourful tradition woven through Tudor celebrations, especially Christmas and Twelfth Night, and still danced across Britain today. Let's step into its world. So what was Morris dancing in Tudor times? In the 15th and 16th centuries, Morris dancing, sometimes called Morisco, was a popular folk dance performed across Western Europe. It usually involved 6 to 8 dancers, mostly men, though occasionally a woman danced or a man dressed as one. And its key features were unmistakable. Mock combat, bells tied around knees, ankles and sometimes wrists, masks or blackened faces, clashing staves, handkerchiefs waved rhythmically, and brightly coloured ribbons and streamers. It was energetic, theatrical, and wonderfully loud. Historian Enid Welsford notes that in England the Morris was closely tied to May Day and Whitsun, with dancers often dressed as characters from the Robin Hood legends. At court, however, it took on a more fantastical form, with performers appearing as wild men, fools, or exotic characters. And where does the name Morisco come from? Well, we don't entirely know. Some think it reflects a Moorish origin, others that it was meant to imitate mock battles between the Moors and Christians. The truth remains tantalisingly unclear, which is very Tudor. In my earlier video, I mentioned the Morris appearing in the Great Tudor Revels. It was often woven into disguisings and courtly masques, dramatic performances combining dance, poetry, song and pageantry. One of the earliest examples at court comes from 1492, when Henry VII included Morris dancers in his Christmas entertainments. They wore bells and ribbons and would have danced to pipe and tabor, the traditional music of the Morris. By Henry VIII's reign, the dance had become firmly associated with royal celebrations. As John Forrest explains in The History of Morris Dancing, it could open or close a masque, accompany processions for dignitaries, entertain crowds on feast days, and appear in civic pageantry in major towns. It was an instantly recognisable symbol of festivity. While the Morris graced the court, it was equally at home in villages. The Rattlejag Morris website describes how in medieval and Tudor England, church festivals were major community events, often funded by selling ales brewed on site, and Morris dancers were hired to draw the crowds. And by the 16th century, the Morris had become a staple of Whitsun ales, May Day revels, parish festivals, street processions, and Shakespeare even tells us something is as fit as a Morris for May Day. Some dancers became famous, most notably William Kemp, the comic actor from Shakespeare's company, who Morris danced from London to Norwich in 1600 and documented the whole adventure. Tudor Morris wasn't just a dance, it was a visual spectacle. The Encyclopedia of Tudor England notes that performers wore bright coats in greens and yellows, bells around wrists, knees and ankles, ribbons and streamers, painted faces or masks, and the team often included stock characters. As I mentioned Robin Hood before, we have Maid Marian, performed by a man, a jester, a hobby horse, which was a man surrounded by a wooden frame so he appeared to ride a horse, Robin Hood and Friar Tuck, and there was even a dragon in some festivities. From Mary I's reign, we even have accounts showing church wardens purchasing green cloth for coats, yellow cotton hose, thread and bells, a reminder of how seriously communities took their Morris. During the Tudor festive season, particularly Twelfth Night, Morris dances formed part of the joyful Misrule of the holidays. And as I said, it was boisterous, communal, symbolic of the turning of the year, and an outlet for joy at the darkest time of winter. Mumming, which was masked visiting, and Morris were often intertwined. Both were full of movement, costume and community spirit. And today? Well, Morris is still alive. It's never disappeared. Today, across England, from village greens to town squares, the Morris is still danced. on May Day, at festivals and fairs, at Christmas events, and sometimes, well, just because. I used to see it a lot when I lived in the Cotswolds and rural Oxfordshire. If you see it, remember that you're watching something that stretches back hundreds of years, right into the Tudor world. Thank you for joining me for today's festive deep dive into Tudor customs. If you're enjoying the Advent series, please do like, subscribe and click that bell. There's so much more Tudor Christmas magic to come. And tell me, have you ever seen Morris dancing?